Alright, I had a few people ask me about how I fret my fretboards. I'd mentioned that I do it all entirely with hand tools and really no templates or fancy jigs of any kind. So I thought I'd kind of outline it here, exactly how I do it. First thing, I start off on my fretboard. I make sure that the fretting surface, the back surface are parallel to each other. I make sure that I've got at least one square edge here, and make sure that the nut edge is perfectly square with this edge that I fret from. And start off with that. It really doesn't matter how this is. Both edges will be trimmed eventually when I put it on the guitar. First thing I do is I print out a template on the W-Fret program, tape it together like that, and lay it down on my fretboard. And I will put this in place with some masking tape. I've used this method here. I've probably fretted a dozen or more instruments like this, and they've all turned out just wonderfully. The intonation's been perfect on it, to my ears anyway, which that's really all that matters, is how it sounds to your ears. I don't even own a tuner, so it may be a little bit off if you check it with a tuner, but I don't know. Make sure and line that up perfectly with the nut end right there. I scotch tape that in place. I'll tape it down in 2 or 3 spots here along the fretboard. When I'm laying this in place, I just make sure that I've got at least a little bit of an area right in here so that I can make my marks that I make. You want to take and make sure you kind of level this out. Just kind of press it down with my finger. You can see some of the bubbles kind of coming out, and that makes it quite a bit more accurate. If you have any ripples or anything, it's going to throw the accuracy of this off. But I really like this W-Fret program because it has saved me oodles and oodles of hand measuring. I used to measure this with a dial caliper, trying to get down as accurate as possible, and it sucked. So this has saved me a whole lot of time and effort. But like I said, they've all turned out really good. It's really a low-tech approach to fretting. I was kind of under the impression that fretting was something that was out of my capabilities for a long time, because it seemed like it was so precise, and everybody had these elaborate jigs and everything. But I found that it's really not necessary. It needs to be accurate, but it doesn't need to be as accurate as people let on, because our ears can only hear so good. What I'm doing here is just along each fret, on each line, I'm just making a precise mark with a real fine mechanical pencil here. Now, after I've done that, I take that template up. It's not needed anymore. Now I've got several marks here where each fret position is supposed to be. Then what I do, I got a little combination square. It's a pretty precise combination square. It's a little antique Starrett combo square that I use. And what I do on each one of these lines that I've just drawn, I take and place my pencil precisely on there. I move that tri-square, that combination square up, and just till it taps the pencil, draw me a line. Move on to the next one, just precisely align it. Slide it up till it just taps the pencil, and draw the line. Now I've taken this, got this fretboard marked, and the reason I put those lines across mainly is to guide my saw. I use a real thin back saw that I've got somewhere on the bench here. And what I've done with this bit's just a cheapo hardware store back saw. And what I'll do before I fret it, I'll lay 4 or 5 pieces of masking tape on this side. I saw with my right hand, so I put everything on the left side so I can see. And I'll put a piece of masking tape that marks the depth that I want to go, so that I'll know how deep I can consistently saw the fret slots deep enough. And also this saw, the saw has got a bit of, all saws have a bit of set to the teeth, where the teeth are kind of splayed out in either direction. That prevents the saw from binding. But with this, I want the slots as narrow as possible. So what I do, on this, what I've done to modify this saw, I've just taken a stone, file each side down, just so the saw has no set. You can't saw very deeply with it, but I don't need to go much more than, you know, maximum 1/8 of an inch, so it doesn't matter. After I mark these, and this is a very important step right here. I developed this and it improved my accuracy greatly. I take my little knife here. You can just use any kind of knife. This is my little fancy knife that I made out of another hunk of firewood, an old pocket knife, make my little marking knife. But I take each one of these slots that I've just sawed, and at the end of each one of these that I've just sawed, I take and perfectly align that knife. I'm very careful and align my hair. And I just press that down. That makes a little notch right there. And what that does, when I start my saw, that saw will kind of find that notch, and it'll automatically be lined up where it needs to be, and I don't have to worry about the saw skating off any place. Alright, and I've gotten all the little slots cut by each line that I've laid out. Got the little tiny knife slots right there. I don't know if you can see those or not, but I've just kind of nicked the corner right there. Let me zoom in a little bit here so you can see what I'm talking about. That's a pretty important step. You can see I've got each I've got each line laid out. I've got a little tiny nick right at the corner of each, or right at the edge of each line that I've laid out. I've just taken my saw and put a few pieces of masking tape right here to act as a dip stop. I've messed around clamping fancy dip stops to it, and this masking tape does just as good a job. I've got the depth here matches approximately the tang of my fret wire. Just kind of eyeballed it. Doesn't have to be perfect. What I do here, right there in that little nick that I've just made, I start my saw. I make sure it's angled back pretty good ways. I start making a real light cut. Start backwards, and I'm kind of watching that saw curve as I make each cut. And just kind of get the knife out of the way. I'll kind of lean back a little bit and look and see where that curve's going. Just make microscopic adjustments if I need to, just so it's square. You can see it's following us perfectly. Once you get started, you don't have to pay as close attention to it. I just take it down to where that masking tape starts hitting it. I'm done. And there's a perfectly cut fret slot. Got this clamped down pretty good. I kind of hold on to it here. Got it clamped down with a nice piece of ukulele headstock. There's a clamping pad too. I just keep on going down the neck, just like that. Start my slot, check it. Get the saw where it's going forward. Just keep watching it. It's off just a little bit. And if you're off just a little bit, you can move it around, because once as long as you don't make it too deep, once you put the fret wire in, then it covers up any errant saw slots. There's another one. I just keep going on down the fretboard just like I'm doing here. And I'm watching, more than anything, I'm watching how square it is side to side like this. If it's off a little bit like this, it doesn't really matter, because once those frets get pressed in, it doesn't make that much difference because it's not that deep. Alright, I just finished up slotting this fretboard. Let me look at the time marker. From the time I started filming this, of course I've edited this and everything, but it took me just right at a half an hour, which is not too bad. I mean, it's pretty quick method for doing it by hand, I think. You can see it turned out looking pretty good, man. Those frets are as precise as they need to be. The important thing is to start in at an angle, because that helps you check your alignment. Plus, it keeps your saw from skating around. I've tried to do them where I had the saw straight up and down. It seemed like the saw always wants to skate and leave a bunch of crazy marks every place. Until you develop your eye too, what I've done before, it seems like it decreased my accuracy. Sometimes I'd have problems with the saw slipping, but you could you could put you a square up here and just get that in position, and I've done that before. And saw along right next to the square, but it seems like it's easier for me just to eyeball it, check the line across there. Now that I've slotted this, I'm going to install my position markers. I've got some little brass screws that I'm going to put through there and file them flush, make little brass position markers. I'll probably put some side dots in too. After that, to fret it, I've got a fret press over there that I got from Stuart McDonald. Got an arbor press, the little fret press call on it there, and I'll just put a piece of fret wire in there, press it in, trim it off, put the next piece in, press it in, trim it off. Pretty standard stuff. I'll make sure my fretboard's real accurate and everything, and flat, hand plane. Use an old hand plane to plane it flat, and that gets it real nice and flat. And I don't even usually have to dress the frets or level them any. Of course, I'm not a big action snob where I got to have action down to 1/64 of an inch, but it's good enough for me. But that's pretty much the method I use. Works really good. It's taken a lot of, I developed this over a year or two here, and it's really taken a lot of the mystery out of fretting for me. I realize it's not as difficult as it appears. So hopefully this helps somebody. If you got any kind of questions, please feel free to ask, because I'll be more than happy to help answer anything that I can. I'm just, like I said before, I'm just kind of old hillbilly out here screwing around and making some sawdust, but I made enough mistakes and learned from them, so maybe I can help somebody. So thanks for watching. Bye.